The night it happened, the rain fell like it had something to confess. Headlights smeared across the wet asphalt as a black luxury car skidded sideways, kissed the guardrail, and died in a hiss of steam. Inside that wreck sat one of the most powerful women in the city, her legs useless beneath her, fear closing in faster than the cold. She had built empires, fired hundreds, crushed competitors without blinking. But in that broken moment, stripped of titles and control, she was only a terrified human being who believed the world was about to hurt her back. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing the right thing when no one is watching, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this matter because they remind us who we can still choose to be. Amir Malik was driving home from his second shift, the kind of late-night security job that paid just enough to keep the lights on and food in the fridge. The city blurred past him as exhaustion pressed on his eyes, but his thoughts stayed sharp because they always had to be. Being a single father meant there was no room for mistakes. His 7-year-old daughter, Zara, would be asleep by now, curled on her side with one hand under her cheek, trusting that her father would always come back. That trust was heavier than any weapon Amir had ever carried during his years in uniform, heavier even than the grief that had followed him since his wife's death. He saw the wreck just as the rain thickened. The hazard lights blinked weakly, like a heartbeat struggling to stay steady. Amir pulled over without thinking, because thinking took time, and time was something the night might not give. He grabbed his jacket and ran toward the car, boots splashing through water that soaked his cuffs. Through the cracked window he saw her. Blood traced a thin line down her temple, her breath came in shallow pulls, and her eyes were wide with a fear that did not belong to. Someone used to command. She begged him with her eyes before her body could do anything else. Her hands clutched the steering wheel as if it were the last solid thing in a collapsing world. Amir noticed the way her legs lay unnaturally still, the way panic rose every time she tried to move and failed. He recognized that look. He had seen it on battlefields and hospital corridors, on faces that understood something precious had just slipped beyond reach. People like her had names that filled newspapers. She was known as the ruthless CEO who never slowed down, the woman who walked into rooms and bent them to her will. Amir knew her face because he had once worked security at her company before budget cuts took his job. He remembered the day he had been escorted out, his daughter's school fees already overdue, her name signed at the bottom of a memo that called it restructuring. She had not looked at him then, she had not needed to. Now, trapped and helpless, she looked at him as if he were the last person on earth. The rain made everything urgent. Smoke curled from under the hood, and the smell of fuel cut through the air. Amir knew the risk. One spark, one wrong move, and the car could turn into a coffin. He also knew how the world often worked. A powerful woman alone at night. A man approaching her wrecked car. Fear had many faces, and some of them were unfair. He could see it flicker across her expression, the instinctive terror that whispered she might not survive the encounter, even if the crash had spared her. That was the moment that defined everything. Amir could have walked away. He could have called emergency services and waited at a distance, protecting himself from suspicion, from complication, from pain. Instead, he did something smaller and braver. He slowed his breathing, softened his posture, and made sure his hands stayed where she could see them. He spoke gently, explaining each movement before he made it, turning urgency into care. He tore his jacket into strips to slow the bleeding, shielded her from the rain with his own body, and blocked the wind with his back as sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Inside, Amir was fighting more than the danger of fire or the weight of her fear. He was fighting memory. He remembered the night his wife had collapsed in their kitchen, the way she had looked at him with the same helplessness, the same trust, and how he had begged the ambulance to hurry. He remembered holding Zara afterward, promising a future he had no idea how to build alone. Standing there now, the rain soaking his shirt, he felt the past and present fold into each other like pages pressed too tightly together. When the first responders arrived, they moved fast, but even their practiced calm could not erase the rawness of the scene. The CEO was lifted carefully, her face pale, her eyes never leaving Amir. He stayed until they told him he could go, until the car was no longer a threat, until the rain washed the blood from his hands. Only then did he return to his own car, shaking, exhaustion finally crashing over him like a wave. Life did not change overnight. It never does. Amir went back to his routines, back to the grind of school runs and night shifts, back to stretching meals and patching old shoes. Zara asked why he looked so tired, and he kissed her hair and told her about helping someone who needed it. She smiled in that simple way children do, proud without understanding the weight of what had happened. The news broke the next day. The city buzzed with the story of the accident, the injuries, the questions about the CEO's future. Analysts speculated, stock prices trembled, and sympathy mixed with ruthless curiosity. Amir watched from the edge of his world, unseen and unnamed, content to remain that way. He did not tell anyone at work. He did not expect anything in return. Weeks passed. Recovery was slow for the woman in the hospital bed. She learned that her spine injury would change how she lived, how she moved through the world she once dominated at a run. Power stripped away. She faced long nights where pain was louder than sleep. In those nights, her mind returned to the rain, to the man who had knelt in the cold without asking who she was or what she could offer him. For the first time in years, gratitude cut deeper than ambition. She asked questions, quiet ones. Who had helped her? Why was his name not in the papers? When she finally learned who he was, learned about the job he had lost and the child he was raising, alone, something inside her shifted. It was not guilt alone. It was recognition. She had measured success in numbers and speed for so long that she had forgotten the cost of ignoring the human beings who made it possible. The call came on an ordinary afternoon. Amir almost did not answer, thinking it was another unknown number trying to sell him something he could not afford. When he did, the voice on the other end was careful, respectful, and nothing like the one he remembered from corporate announcements. He listened in silence, disbelief threading through him as an invitation took shape. Not charity, not pity, an offer built on dignity and choice. The day he walked into that building again, it felt different. The polished floors and glass walls no longer intimidated him. He carried himself the way he always had, steady and grounded. He was not there to beg or to prove anything. He was there because someone had finally seen him. Their meeting was private and unrecorded. No press, no speeches. Just two people sitting across from each other, changed by the same night in different ways. She thanked him without theatrics, acknowledged the past without excuses, and spoke about building something better going forward. Amir listened, cautious but open, understanding that forgiveness did not mean forgetting, and second chances were not owed but earned. What followed was not a miracle, but it was real. Amir was hired to lead a new community safety and outreach program, one designed to provide stable jobs to people who had been quietly discarded like he had been. His experience mattered. His voice mattered. Zara visited the office one afternoon, her eyes wide as she saw her father at a desk, smiling in a way she had not seen in years. The CEO watched from her wheelchair, a small, private smile on her face, understanding that power used well did not roar. It listened. The city never knew the full story. It did not need to. Change does not always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives in steady paychecks, in dinners eaten without worry, in a child sleeping soundly because her world feels safer. Sometimes it arrives in a woman learning to move through life differently, guided less by fear of losing control and more by gratitude for those who had shown her mercy when she had none to offer. Near the end of that year, as winter softened the streets and lights glowed warmer, Amir stood on his balcony watching Zara build a snowman with neighbors. He thought about how close everything had come to breaking, about how a single decision in the rain had redirected so many lives. He did not see himself as a hero. He saw himself as a father who had done what he would want someone to do for his child, no matter who stood in front of him. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you that kindness can still interrupt cruelty, and that ordinary people can change extraordinary outcomes, please take a moment now to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. And before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with the words, "Kindness still matters," if you believe one good choice can change everything. The rain eventually stopped, as it always does. Scars remained, visible and invisible, but they no longer defined the future. In a city that rushed past pain without slowing down, two lives had collided and chosen compassion instead. And in that choice, something stronger than fear was born, something quiet and enduring, something that walked forward even when legs could not, carried by the simple, stubborn hope that humanity is still worth believing in.